We find that as we live here and use these landscapes, that we have an obligation to be the stewards of the land and to be able to have these special places into the future. I'm Joy Bannon. I'm the Policy Director for Wyoming Wildlife Federation. So this is just a special moment to be here this time of day. It's sunrise, and you can just get that color. You can see the contours of the landscape. It's just kind of the start of the morning. We are in southwest Wyoming, where we sit on public lands. For public lands, which are managed by federal government, the Bureau of Land Management, they do what they call National Environmental Policy Act review of their management plans every 15 to 20 years. And right now, the Rock Springs field office is revising their plan. There's some antelope actually right there. And the public have opportunities to comment on how they would like to see these lands managed. And we've provided management conservation options for them to consider that really look at hunting, angling, wildlife, habitat, and keeping that a vital part of these lands.
A resource management plan can be thought of as a blueprint, if you will. It basically spells out the management practices and the allocations that will be part of that management plan after it's been approved. I'm Mary Jo Rugwell. I was the state director for the Bureau of Land Management here in Wyoming from 2015 until I retired in 2019. It's a very great mission, but it's a very complicated mission because a lot of people that are involved in a particular area have different ideas about what things should happen in that area. So that's where the balancing act comes in. Well, the land use planning process, it's essential to have the input of the general public, and most especially the input of people like our Native American tribes that use that area.
The women would place their hands in this rock and squat down, and they would give birth. And how beautiful sentiment it is that they utilize the earth to give life. My name is Lynette Grable. I am Hunkpapa Lakota in Northern Arapaho, and I'm the executive director of Not Our Native Daughters. We have petroglyphs throughout the Red Desert. So from an indigenous standpoint, it is quite important that not we only preserve that, but also protect it. The Northern Plains tribes would utilize this cliff to scare the buffalo off this one particular drop. And the women would be on this side, and they would harvest the buffalo. Indigenous people, they follow the animals in these paths and these routes. So the migration corridor, the animals that reside in this area and that still reside here was a way of survival. Those lands and landscapes, I think it's very important for us to protect and something that we value as Native American people.
The reason migration is so important and why it receives so much attention is because migration promotes abundance. And so it makes sense that if we want to protect and sustain the populations that we have, we need to also take care of these migration routes. My name's Hal Sawyer. I'm a research biologist with Western Ecosystems Technology. And the one in the Red Desert is particularly impressive because it's the longest mule deer migration in the world. It's nice to know that they use the same migration route year after year. It's well defined. And so from a conservation perspective, it's pretty easy to incorporate management actions that can help those deer, like road crossings and fence modifications or conservation easements or an assortment of other things.
This is a high desert landscape, and we have big game here. They all rely on water, and this is a great water source. A beautiful mule deer right over there. They just got on the horizon.
It's really cool to see them coming through here. And there's a high probability that they spend their summers 100 miles away from here.
I want to make sure to note here that Wyoming Wildlife Federation, when we comment to the Bureau of Land Management, we mentioned that it's important to keep the historical uses of the landscape as well. So cattle grazing, energy development where appropriate, and maintaining that balance that we have to do to keep our wildlife here, but also create a good economy for Wyoming. And on a personal level, these public lands mean a lot to me. Not only did I hunt here for the first time, but I have 2 children, and we like to explore. We like to adventure in these areas, be out in the ecosystem that is thriving and doing well, and to see wildlife. We are on the top of Little Mountain, which is the crown jewel of Southwest Wyoming. So the Resource Management Plan, it's a long-standing document that's going to be revised. And therefore, what is created and developed and signed off on now will be in place for those next 20 years. And so that means 2 decades from now, when my children are having children, we want this to be in a very similar place.